But how many booster shots do you think we will be getting? There's one available now, but how long in the future will we be getting booster shots?
You know, we don't know definitively the answer to that, but it is likely that this thing is not going to disappear. It's not going to be eradicated, and it's not going to be eliminated. So it's going to be around, you know, for the foreseeable future. So it is likely that we will require an intermittent, likely at the same time as we get a flu vaccine, at least once a year, very similar to what we do to keep updated on our immunity against influenza. It is very likely that the similar situation will be experienced a shot once a year, probably at the same time as we get an influenza shot.
Just when I thought Dr. Fauci is gone, I'm still shocked, to be hearing this. So they have to be taking boosters yearly. Amazing. That is not our focus on this clip. The Guardian published an article about Russell Brand. I don't know if you have seen. He recently had this interview talking about climate change, and they did a hit piece.
You are broadly regarded as left-wing. You wrote that book, The Environmental Skeptic. Yeah, and what I wanted to say is that your position on climate change is what's brought you to prominence, and I believe garnered you a good deal of criticism in some... Yeah, it has, hasn't it?
Yes.
And this is what I want. This is what I most want to understand. I believe your position is that you say that climate change is real, that climate change is man-made, but the efforts that are being suggested to amend it will not make a sufficient difference, and there are other things that could be done that will be more meaningful. One of the questions that I have is, I know that polluting the planet cannot be good on a spiritual level, and it seems that there's significant evidence to suggest that, that man-made climate change is real. What I know and what I...
Yes, there is something I notice with these people. When they call something a conspiracy, you are supposed to pay attention to this. It might be the truth. This is how they title it: Russell Brand descend into conspiracy politics. This is not the first time they are doing this. Russell Brand is the latest to platform climate consecutive, reckless net zero cost claim. The Danish commentator has been accused of continuing to misrepresent findings about the cost of cutting emissions despite pleas from scientists. If you like your YouTube content to have plenty of references to globalist elite, industrial complexes, freedom, and consecutive conspiracy theory of the Great Reset, then the British comedian and actor Russell Brand channel might be for you. And this is how they started. I want to play out some part on this interview he had about climate change. Just take a look at this.
Why are they promoting this climate change idea and advocating for the solutions that they are, including things like ESG, if those things will not be effective? And what about the other side of the argument, energy giants who are clearly pollutants? I feel like of the, that's maybe like of the biggest pollutants in the world, 70 of them are corporations, So what I want to unpick is, where is the power in this argument? I recognize that if something like the argument for climate change is being as promoted as broadly as it is and is supported by powerful interests, that means that they are somehow benefiting from it, likely financially, and that the ultimate solutions that will be suggested will inhibit and impede the motion, movement, and freedom of ordinary people. But I don't quite understand how it is, because it sort of seems to me like the sort of thing that typically I would believe in, because I do care about the planet. I love the environment. I'd love to impede the interests of the powerful, regulate, control their businesses and their polluting behaviours. So tell me how you've arrived at this position, and tell me how powerful, in particular as a starting point, how do the powerful benefit from their current climate change rhetoric?
Well, so if you look at all those guys who went to Davos last year and go to listen to Greta Thunberg, a lot of them arrive in their own private jets. So in some sense, what you can see is they're telling us, well, we should cut down on all kinds of stuff, but of course they're not actually interested in cutting down on their private planing. There's this fun point of John Kerry, the climate czar from Biden, who went to Iceland to pick up his environmental award in private plane. And so it's sort of like, yeah, that's not how you're going to solve this problem. So there is a real problem. It is a thing that we need to fix. But currently, it's being suggested that we should fix it by buying, say, lots of solar, lots of wind. Most of this is subsidized, and obviously, a lot of people are making a lot of money off of it. But the problem is, it cuts very little at fairly high cost. So actually, what we're doing is we're doing a tiny bit of fixing climate change. So if you actually look at the whole Paris Agreement, for instance, it will solve about 1% of all the stuff that we're talking about trying to solve. So it'll cut a very, very minimal part of what we're trying to solve. Yet it is going to be fantastically costly. We're talking several $1 trillion. And of course, it's not going to be mainly the guys flying to Davos so it'll be you and me and everybody else.
Yes, now you've seen this, you realize Russell Brand is asking relevant questions pertaining to this elite. The mainstream media would see this and attribute to conspiracy, which I don't understand. These are important questions. A lot of these people are benefiting from this scheme, though they will never accept that they are using this, to make a lot of money. He quoted, like you saw at the Davos 2023, they are all using private jet. When a question surfaces to Bill Gates, when they ask him, but you are receiving criticisms, why are you using private jet? The kind of reason he was outlining, when I watched that clip, at a certain point, I decided to stop. Because to me, it was getting me irritated. So when the mainstream media comes and brands something like a conspiracy theory, you are supposed to focus there because that is where the truth is. Anything that goes against their narratives, it is what they stand up against. Let me read this out. So during the interview, Brand asked Bloomberg why you could not store solar and wind power for the times when the sun didn't shine or the wind didn't blow. Right now, Bloomberg said the world has battery to store enough electricity for 1 minute 15 seconds. By the end of this decade, we will have 11 minutes. The conclusions any observer might reach here is that batteries cannot possibly provide enough cover for renewable energy. Australians have had this argument deployed by some commentators and the opposition leader Peter Dutton when talking about big battery projects in South Australia and Victoria. But this argument is mostly a Storman battery are not being deployed to provide backup for the whole electricity supply, nor they are the only technology that will allow electricity grid to become almost carbon free. In a bit like adding up all the world supply of chocolate, biscuit, and then adding up the calories that people need and then saying anyone's going to starve because there aren't enough biscuit, says Asan Steve, a climate change and energy expert at the Grattan Institute